Well, Connecticut is under a COVID-19 alert tonight as more cases are reported throughout the state and the country.
Yeah, big news here. The growing number of cases, highly transmissible Delta variant, still keeping a lot of people on edge tonight. Here are the latest COVID numbers from the Department of Public Health. Since Tuesday, the positivity rate is nearing 3%. Connecticut hasn't seen that high of a positivity rate here in our state since early May. There were 2 fewer people hospitalized for the virus since Tuesday in Connecticut. That total number, though, still remains over 100 patients statewide.
Well, new tonight, 2 of Connecticut's 8 counties have reached the threshold for areas with COVID-19 community transmission deemed substantial. According to the CDC, Hartford and New London counties are under that level of transmission. The CDC says substantial transmission is anywhere from 50 to about 100 total new cases per 100,000 population in the past 7 days. And this comes just a day after the CDC passed new guidelines recommending people wear a mask indoors regardless of COVID-19 vaccination status. Well, as part of that new guidance, officials are still urging people who are not vaccinated to wear their masks. People in those areas with substantial and also high COVID-19 transmission rates are being encouraged to wear a mask inside. And with the school year fast approaching, everyone in schools, including teachers, staff, and students, should wear a mask regardless of their COVID-19 vaccination status.
Well, with cases